Hi, everyone, and welcome to a special edition of our special podcast, the Executive Digest. I have Christopher Moravec from Dymaptic doing very cool stuff with geography and cartography and artificial intelligence. And he's going to tell us how cool he and his company are and share some of his great secrets on the universe with us. Hi, Christopher. You ready?
I'm ready. I'm ready. Let's do it, Adam.
All right. So tell me just how cool your company is.
Yeah. So
As
Dymaptic, we're a small company. We're a kind of what I would describe as a boutique custom software and GIS implementation. And so GIS is Geographic Information Services. It's the idea of taking maps and answering questions from a location context in addition to just a data context, right? So think about, oh, if I had trucks going from point A to point B, and I want to be able to route them actively around weather, right? And thinking about maybe that means that I could take a faster route or I could save money on damaged things because now the truck isn't going to rock or whatever. So answering those types of location problems for all kinds of different people. And so I've spent my whole career as a consultant, building things for other people, deploying things for other people, and trying to really solve these weird, interesting problems that people have around trying to understand what does the location of this mean to me? And I think it's an interesting question because you often you don't think about things in terms of location. We do it natively when you look at a map or you get directions on Google Maps to get to the restaurant or whatever. But we don't think about it always in context of like how can I solve problems differently? And knowing things like if you can predict where a flood might be in a city and you could take proactive measures ahead of time to route traffic, right? Say after a football game, you've got 100,000 people trying to leave a stadium, but you have flooded roads on one side from a rainstorm earlier in the day. If you knew that ahead of time, you could deploy police and traffic control to get people routed through a highway. So it's doing that kind of location analytics, that kind of location prediction stuff that I think is really interesting. And we don't always get to do the shiny, flashy things. Sometimes we're just trying to get points on a map, but we do a lot of those kinds of things and trying to help people understand not just the context of the data, but the location of their data.
so would an example be, let me see if I get this, that so the flood has happened and you want to be able to say, do the routing problem, given this area is inaccessible, tell me what the right route would be, and your engine would generate that.
Yeah. And these are all like a lot of these things are even off the shelf, right? You're grabbing this kind of engine from over here and this weather data from these people, and you're gluing these different systems together to answer these questions. You're just trying to do it in a way that makes sense location wise and mixing variables together that we don't traditionally mix together.
Great. And what's your AI play?
Yeah. So we have several. Oh, and I should introduce the other member of our interview today. This screen behind me here is called the Whisper Frame. This is an AI art generator that I built that listens to meetings and conversations and draws art about the concepts and about the things that we talk about. So right now it's showing a picture of a map that I was talking about earlier, but it'll update here shortly and we'll get to see it try to draw art about our conversation here.
That is the coolest thing I have seen this week. That is amazing. And I can't wait to see what it comes up to. Updating,
Oh, it's updating.
updating. And there's our flood and our
Yep,
rerouting.
yep, yep,
Okay.
yep.
Okay. Very cool. I
Yeah,
love
I
it.
have one in my living room too.
All right, cool. Is this available?
I did put the source code on GitHub so you could make it go yourself, but it's not a thing that I'm trying to sell or anything. I This is part of why I built this is that part of Dymaptic's AI play is trying to find unique interesting cases for AI. So I definitely am in the member of people that have chatbot fatigue to some extent, right? Every tech company out there is trying to put a chatbot in everything to try to make something faster. And sometimes it's great, right? Sometimes it is. But there are also really interesting use cases for AI that don't have to be a chatbot. And so this is one, this because I think this is fun. Other examples that we've done are a thing that I call fuzzy data matching. And so this is the idea that I might have a set of known locations, right? Let's call them national parks, even. And then I get some new information about those national parks. Maybe it's like number of visitors or something like that. But if you've ever played with data at any level, you know that every time you get data from people, the names aren't going to line up, right? I might have Crater Lake National Park in my data set, and you give me, and it says CLNP. Great. I can tell what that is, but no SQL clause is ever going to. And so using AI to match those kind of fuzzy matches together when we're ingesting data.
A little bit. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I could talk for probably an hour about all of these different examples. There's all kinds of really cool ones.
Every time I enter data, it places it and does the whole thing. The initial take on AI essentially gave me the start of my own Star Trek computer. So
Yes.
that is what has been wonderful in my life.
Yes, my Star Trek computer story is I'm just starting this project. So this is sneak peek to upcoming project here. I just replaced, this is a personal project. I just replaced my old sprinkler control box with a thing called Open Sprinkler, which is just an open source, open hardware thing it's wonderful. And my plan is I'm going to have an AI agent that controls my sprinkler system around the house. So this is going to be fascinating. This is going to be a weird, I don't know what's going to happen, because I'm just going to give it control of my sprinkler system, and we're going to see what it does. It's going to be a fun adventure.
Okay, you have to get us updated. All right, so now operational wisdom from you. So first, what are the most important risks and challenges that your industry is facing and your company?
Yeah, I think one is AI. And I think specifically within GIS and mapping, it's almost like part of it is like a deep fake component. Being able to generate, you can ask ChatGPT to make a map and it can't quite do it, but it's close. It has the vibe of being correct. And it would be really easy to mistake that map for something authoritative and make decisions on it. And especially if you're looking at something like counties across the United States or something like that. And you don't want to do that. Like we're AI, it might get to the point where it can make that map. But today, it's if I asked you to open Microsoft Paint and draw that map for me, right? It's doing an artistic rendering of that map more than anything else. It doesn't have access to the data. That's actually a problem I'm working on solving is can I marry these together to build maps? But it turns out that location data is complicated sometimes, and large language models still don't quite understand it. So piecing this together is still an open challenge in the industry, but there are people working on it, not just me. But you have to watch out for that kind of deep fake map. And so I think the industry is struggling with how does AI fit into this play? I can use it to help me prototype colors and maps and try to make things more accessible and things like that. But at the same time, I still have to apply my own brain to it. It doesn't replace me yet.
I hope there will always be some added value in bringing your brain to the game.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
Nothing else. I have 4 assistants that I didn't have before.
Yeah.
It's like assistants, you want to check their work.
Yep. Yeah. It's just like the thing that was hot on the internet last week and a little bit this week still is that the poor person in Replit they were using Replit to build an application, and they're using the AI to build it, and it deleted their production database because it got confused. And it's because when you're using these coding tools, they're very powerful. I definitely can code my way through a lot of application very quickly with these tools, but they're also like a really smart intern, and they do things like delete a database. And if you can't be running this in production, like
should never be running it in production.
Right. And I like to ask when I give a talk about this, I'm like, how many of you have ever deleted a production database? Nobody ever wants to raise their hand. I'll raise my hand. I've made that mistake when I was young, right? I've deleted something that was important. Fortunately, I knew how to dig myself out of it, right? But these AI tools don't know how to do that, right? They don't have enough gathered combined knowledge to really be able to operate a system like that. So you can't let them do that. Anyway, yeah.
All right. Well, we're all learning.
Yep.
All right. So let's talk about your teams.
Yeah.
What are your key ingredients that are necessary for building a high performance team?
I think one of the most important things is actually diversity. And it's all about where people have come from, like what's their background. Like a group of people that have only been software developers their whole life look at problems in a certain way. But if you suddenly throw into the mix a software developer that hasn't done that their whole life, previously they were a skydiving instructor, or they were a music teacher, or they were something else, then all of a sudden they have a different component that they bring to that mix. And as consultants, we're always working to try to figure out what is it that the client really is trying to build. They gave me the list of requirements. Okay, but what is it really? And to answer that question, it's about empathy, right? It's about being able to put yourself in their shoes and figure out what is it that they really need. And we get a lot more diversity and empathy when we have more diverse backgrounds and coming from different walks of life, coming from different previous skills, coming from different schools, having all kinds of different backgrounds makes a big difference.
And speaking of how to leverage diversity, how do your teams identify and mitigate risk?
Yeah, so this is always challenging, right? Because there are so many different types of risk in a software project. I think the biggest risk is always that you deliver the wrong thing. And that goes back to the empathy thing. There are other types of risk. Oh, we misestimated this. We thought it was going to take 1 week and it's actually more like 2 weeks, right, to do this feature or something like that. And there are those types of risk. And those we deal with in the kind of classic way. We have an agile process that we're using. We're trying to keep communication bandwidth high, things like that. We're a fully remote team, so it's extra hard, right? You can't bump into people and have conversations. You have Slack channels and Teams meetings and all these things. And you're trying to keep people engaged all the time. But for us, the biggest risk is that we misdeliver. We're building the wrong thing. Even if the client wanted this and we're just overlapping mostly, but there's this piece that we built they didn't want, or there's this piece that we missed. I think that's the biggest risk. And for us, it's about delivering often. It's showing demos. It's engaging them in not only the development process and the delivery process, but in as early as possible in that design process, so that we're trying to really understand what is driving them, what is driving the decision that they have made to hire us to build this thing for them. Because I think that's the hardest part.
I always think of it that your job is to deliver what the customer needs, not necessarily what they ask for.
That's right. And when they're asking for something, they in their head, they're asking for what they need. But what's that saying? There's a saying about communication that's something like, we think deeply, but we talk thinly, or something along those lines. And it's that external communication, that talking, that is relatively thin, that we have to base all of our decisions on, even though they might have spent a lot of time thinking about it. And I think that's one of the hardest things, is engaging with a client, especially one that's new, that you don't have a long time rapport with. And that's the hardest thing.
And they may not be experts in how to be a software vendor's customer.
Yes, especially if they've never done it before.
So, you have more expertise of how you need to coach them on how to be a good customer for you.
Yeah. And that it's funny that you say that, but one of the things that I'll do sometimes with customers is I'll be like, here are some questions that I think you should be asking us right now. And here's the answers, but here's some things that I think you should be thinking about.
That they didn't know they didn't know.
Yep. Yep.
Okay. So when teams are not able to deliver, what do you think is the root cause?
So if they can't deliver, I think it's typically we didn't scope it correctly. We didn't appropriately describe the thing that we needed. And that could happen at multiple tiers in the process, right? It can happen at the very beginning with the client. It can happen further down with me as the tech lead or as with a project manager. But it's typically not because the person couldn't achieve the goal. It's that the goal wasn't properly defined. And I think it's hard. That's a hard problem to deal with on everybody's side because on all sides of this problem, because I thought I had defined it completely and they thought they understood what I wanted, but it's not until we're partway through that we understand that the miscommunication happened. And I think that's the most common thing is it's not that like the technology failed. It's not that somebody didn't know how to do it. There's a lot of resources to learn. There's other senior staff. There's AI. You can go and ask it for an opinion on how you might do this or what technology you might use now. It's more about not the goal wasn't communicated correctly. And I think and it's always a balancing act, excuse me, because I want our engineers to be creative. I want them to have the freedom to solve it in the best way, but I also need them to do it in line with what the client needs in a particular way. And so, how much detail do you define? And that varies based on the experience of the engineer and other things too. Is newer engineers, you have to give them more details. Whereas more senior engineers, you're like, yeah, you remember that project we did last year that had the map and the thing? Yeah, do that. And they're like, yeah, I got it. But engineers that are newer in the industry and don't understand even the nuances of maps and location data, it's easy to forget that they don't know something yet and not describe it. And I think that's creating that specification it's a hard balancing act.
Great. Our definition in risk upfront is of a super high risk is something no one's ever done before.
Yeah.
And you don't see that a lot in software. I see it a lot in my chemical and semiconductor and biotech companies. Okay. But a high risk is something someone's done, but you've never done.
Right.
And that's simply, and what happens is often those types of risks are undervalued because you've never done it. There's a volatility on your volatility assessment, right? And creating space to recognize that and have that stuff resolved up front is critical to avoid those. I thought it would be easier, or thought I understood it, but
Yep. Yeah. And like a question we will often get from folks is, oh, okay, have you ever done a mapping integration with XYZ product? And I'm like, okay, tell me what XYZ product is. I have never actually worked with that one. So tell me, like, what is the class of product we're in? And they're like, oh, it's a permitting solution for local governments. Oh, okay. We've done it with these other 10 ones. We haven't done yours. Let me see if they have an API really quick, because if they do, then it's going to map just like these other 10. If they don't, we need to talk more. And so yeah, I haven't done that one, but I know the process.
yeah.
And
And
yeah,
it's recognizing where the line is, right?
yeah,
And this is where smart wisdom can decide, are you at a high risk or is it just a medium? Oh, they have an API, so it's pretty safe. Let's spend our attention on the stuff that we really haven't done before. And
yep.
that's that one of the wins from that. All right. So now your time to shine. What is your executive hot take that you think other executives should be thinking about now?
So this is a hard question to answer. I think that my hot take is that right now, everyone is underestimating what AI can do.
Hmm.
And it's not because it can do things yet. It's that it's going to be able to do things tomorrow or next month or next year. Because if you think about the trajectory of this, 2 years ago, if you and I were talking, we might talk about AI because I was into it, but probably not a lot. 2 years later, here we are. And it's literally changing work. It's changing school. We see things like OpenAI releasing education mode or whatever it was like yesterday. And things like this that are changing behaviors in society already. If you think your teacher's English project, this is a true story. If you think your teacher's English project is silly and you don't want to do it, you go to ChatGPT. And maybe you hope that the English teacher doesn't notice.
What I'm seeing from teachers is the ones that do embrace it, or certainly there are definite ways to structure writing assignments
Yes.
that don't do this, and some of it is submitting stuff in handwritten
Yeah.
or on review phases. So it's teachers are really smart and creative, and when they engage themselves, because the game is what is the learning objective that you need to get
Yep.
out of it. And I've been fascinated. But then there's a whole cast of teachers that are still resisting that AI exists and that maybe it'll go away and nothing will change.
Yep.
But we're in for something. Bill Gates made a comment about that a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
And so we'll see what education looks like.
Yep. And I think the follow-on to that is we don't know what it can do yet. And the follow-on to that is right now, though, and I'll use an analogy from another blogger. What's her name? Cassie. Man, what is her name?
You know what? You can send it and we'll put the link in the notes.
Yeah,
Right?
Cassie.
Something.
Yeah, Cassie. I always mispronounce this. But anyway, she writes a lot about AI, and she makes the analogy that AI is like a genie in a lamp. And that lamp, when the genie's in it, that lamp is protecting you from it. Okay? And when you open it and you let the genie out, now you're talking to this genie and you don't know exactly how it's going to interpret what you say or what action it's going to take based on what you say. But you've let it out and the protections are gone. So what are you going to do to protect yourself? So you can't just implement an AI and not think about what's going to happen when it goes wrong. And I think there are so many companies out there right now offering AI services and, oh, we'll build you a chatbot for this. And I think that most of them forget the safety part. And not just can I misuse this, but what am I going to do when my customer service chatbot promises a refund? What are you going to do? Yeah.
It's funny you should say that because I had that use case. Actually, it had screwed up a planning project. It's helping me do my garden. I have a little farm on my deck, literally in Times Square in New York.
Okay.
And ChatGPT, world of difference doing it this year. We can map out where the sun is, and it will say, "Oh, this is the right varietal for you, and this is where you." Shocking. Speaking of geographic data,
That's awesome.
Going to get into this because it's about you, but it made a mistake on something or promised it would do something and said, "Yeah, I owe you another lamp, another." It was something about coming up with the right grow light. Yeah, the second light, my mistake. The second light's on me, and I went back and said, "Okay, now," and not so much.
Not so much.
Really interesting. Wow, I haven't told anyone that anecdote, but
yeah,
that was.
I don't think people think about it enough. I don't think people think about it enough. People aren't prepared for it. And you can tell they're not because every week there's a news story about some version of that. And so I think people aren't prepared for what that means. When you put your intern in charge of customer support and they start promising things.
God, you're letting them talk to customers.
Yep.
All right. So here's the last question, last official question, right? All right. So what are 2 blogs, podcasts, articles, or books that you recommend to our listeners?
Yes. Okay. So the first one is Cassie's blog, which is called Decision Intelligence. She does a great job of laying things out in a very clean way with analogies all around AI and specifically how leadership and how managers need to think about AI in the future. And I think her perspective is really great. So highly recommend that. The other one is a blog website thing called AI 2027, which is a bunch of experts in AI research got together and said, what does it look like for AI to get better at humans, at doing everything that humans can do? And when might that happen? And that's a weird, scary question to ask. It's a little uncomfortable. And their blog thing is really long, but there's some YouTube versions of it and different things. And it's worth at least scanning through because you can see things where they've been right and where they've been wrong in their predictions. And it's interesting to note things like one of the things they predicted was the rise of agents. And we are seeing that. They're not as good as they thought they would be. Like the agent tools in ChatGPT is, okay. I don't know. It's not that great. But anyway, their predictions are interesting. And I think it's worth thinking about.
Great. That is awesome. And I'm noticing behind you, it's caught up to our genie.
Yep.
That remains the coolest thing. All right, good. Okay. You ready for the secrets question?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. What is your favorite vegetable?
I'm going with the first thing that popped into my brain, and that's Brussels sprouts.
All right. Okay. Any particular way you like them prepared?
Oh yeah, my favorite way is I slice them in half and I just pan fry them in a little oil, half side down, so you get that kind of little bit of char on there. Perfect.
Excellent. Excellent. Good. If you want to put the details of your recipe, we'll put it in the notes
Okay.
down below. But thank you so much for listening on the podcast. And it's as I do several of these every week, the AI story changes, right? Because
Totally.
where we are watching history emerge. One thing I liked about your comment about the AI 2027, we all talk about when we're going to get to AGI, right? General intelligence and all, but just taking a shot at what is it going to look like just 2 years from now?
Yep.
Yeah. What will be the incremental or what turns out to be a step function change in the AI ecosystem coming down the road in a few months?
Yep.
So buckle your seatbelts. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It was fun.